Marvel Phase 1, 2008 to 2012, marked the bold beginning of what would become the most successful cinematic universe in film history. It all started with Iron Man in 2008, a film that not only redefined Robert Downey Jr.'s career, but also laid the groundwork for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. With its grounded storytelling, snarky charm, and focus on character-driven action, Iron Man introduced audiences to Tony Stark, a flawed genius whose transformation into a hero was as compelling as the suit he built. The Incredible Hulk followed the same year, attempting to reboot the character after earlier failures, though it struggled to leave a lasting impact despite a more serious tone. As the phase progressed, Marvel expanded its universe with Iron Man 2, deepening the mythology of S.H.I.E.L.D. and introducing key players like Black Widow and Nick Fury. Then came Thor, 2011, which opened the doors to the cosmic side of Marvel, with Norse mythology, Asgard, and a Shakespearean drama between brothers Thor and Loki. Captain America: The First Avenger took a different path, diving into the past with a World War II-era origin story that balanced patriotism with personal loss and sacrifice. These solo stories slowly weaved a larger tapestry, each film dropping breadcrumbs that hinted at a bigger picture, the Avengers Initiative. The culmination arrived in 2012 with The Avengers, an unprecedented ensemble blockbuster that united all the established heroes into a single narrative. Directed by Joss Whedon, the film was a cultural and cinematic milestone, delivering thrilling action, witty banter, and emotional payoff for years of build-up. Loki emerged as a charismatic villain, and the team dynamic set a new bar for superhero storytelling. Phase 1 was not just about introducing heroes, it was about building trust with the audience, crafting a connected world, and proving that serialized storytelling in cinema could thrive. Despite a few tonal imbalances and growing pains, Phase 1 succeeded in balancing solo arcs with universe building and left audiences hungry for more, establishing Marvel Studios as a powerhouse and changing the future of blockbuster filmmaking forever. Marvel Phase 2, 2013 to 2015, served as the MCU's expansion era, a time of evolution, experimentation, and deeper emotional stakes following the groundbreaking success of The Avengers. With the world now aware of superheroes and alien threats, Phase 2 explored how individuals and governments responded to this new reality. It began with Iron Man 3, which took a more personal, introspective approach to Tony Stark, examining his PTSD and vulnerabilities after the Battle of New York. While divisive due to its twist on the Mandarin, it was bold in stripping the hero down to his core. Thor: The Dark World, though visually rich and expanding the Nine Realms, is often considered one of the weaker entries, as it struggled with tone and a forgettable villain. However, Captain America: The Winter Soldier changed the game, blending political thriller elements with superhero action. It introduced themes of surveillance, corruption, and trust, while radically shifting the MCU by dismantling S.H.I.E.L.D. and turning Bucky Barnes into the emotionally complex Winter Soldier. Then came Guardians of the Galaxy, a wild space adventure that defied expectations with its humor, heart, and a now iconic retro soundtrack. It proved Marvel could succeed without A-list characters, introducing audiences to a new corner of the universe and making characters like Rocket and Groot household names. Avengers: Age of Ultron brought the team back together, but with darker undertones. Although it struggled under the weight of its setup duties and heavy VFX, It introduced critical characters like Vision, Scarlet Witch, and laid foundational elements for future conflicts, such as Tony and Steve's ideological clash. Finally, Ant-Man closed the phase with a more comedic, small-scale heist film, showcasing Marvel's range and creativity. While Phase 2 lacked the novelty of its predecessor, it was vital in deepening character arcs, broadening the MCU's genres and locations, from political thrillers to galactic epics, and preparing the emotional and thematic groundwork for the monumental conflicts of Phase 3. It proved that Marvel was not a one-hit franchise. It could evolve, take risks, and still deliver hits while expanding its universe with confidence and variety. Ask ChatGPT. Marvel Phase 3, 2016 to 2019, is widely regarded as the pinnacle of the MCU. A phase that masterfully balanced scale, emotion, and spectacle while culminating the Infinity Saga in truly epic fashion. It kicked off with Captain America: Civil War, a film that shattered the Avengers from within by pitting friend against friend over ideology, guilt, and unresolved trauma. The movie introduced Black Panther and the MCU's Spider-Man, both of whom would go on to become fan favorites. Doctor Strange followed, dazzling audiences with its mind-bending visuals and mystical world-building, adding a new dimension, literally, to the ever-expanding universe. Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2 delivered emotional growth for its cosmic misfits while exploring themes of fatherhood and found family. Spider-Man: Homecoming brought Peter Parker back to high school and grounded his journey, showing a younger, more vulnerable side to the superhero world. Then came Thor: Ragnarok, which reinvented the God of Thunder with humor, bold color palettes, and a sense of cosmic fun under Taika Waititi's direction, making Thor more charismatic and self-aware. But the true cultural milestone of the phase was Black Panther, which wasn't just a Marvel movie. It became a global phenomenon. Its celebration of African culture, powerful storytelling, and an unforgettable villain in Killmonger made it an instant classic, breaking barriers and earning Marvel its first Best Picture Oscar nomination. Avengers: Infinity War followed, a cinematic juggernaut that brought all heroes together to face Thanos, the most compelling villain the MCU had introduced to date. With high stakes, shocking deaths, and a devastating ending, it left audiences stunned. Ant-Man and the Wasp provided a lighter, more personal adventure, but its post-credit scene tied directly into the looming catastrophe. Captain Marvel introduced the MCU's most powerful heroine and added to the cosmic narrative, though its reception was mixed due to rushed character development. Then came Avengers: Endgame, a once-in-a-lifetime event that paid off over a decade of storytelling. It was a cinematic triumph, emotional, nostalgic, and spectacular. The film served as a heartfelt goodbye to Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, redefining heroism and sacrifice for a generation. Finally, Spider-Man: Far From Home served as both an epilogue and a transition, showing Peter grappling with Tony's death while teasing the multiverse and future threats. Phase 3 was a storytelling masterclass. Marvel at its most confident, ambitious, and emotionally resonant. It not only delivered some of the MCU's best films, but also proved that a shared cinematic universe could have long-term payoff, character depth, and global impact unmatched by any other franchise. Marvel Phase 4, 2021 to 2022, marked a bold and experimental new chapter for the MCU, emerging in the aftermath of Avengers: Endgame and navigating a post-Infinity Saga world. It was a phase of rebuilding, grief, legacy, and transformation, both for the characters within the universe and for the franchise itself. Kicking off with WandaVision, Marvel's first Disney Plus series, Phase 4 introduced audiences to a new era of long-form storytelling. Blending sitcom aesthetics with psychological trauma and magic, WandaVision explored Wanda Maximoff's grief and evolution into the Scarlet Witch. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier tackled themes of racial identity, legacy, and post-blip politics, culminating in Sam Wilson taking up the mantle of Captain America. Loki shifted the focus to the multiverse, introducing the Time Variance Authority, Variance, and the first glimpse of Kang, the next major threat, while reinventing Loki's character arc. On the film side, Black Widow arrived with mixed reception, serving as a long-overdue solo story for Natasha Romanoff, while introducing Yelena Belova. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was a refreshing success, blending martial arts, family conflict, and mystical world-building, while spotlighting the first Asian lead in the MCU. Then came Eternals, Marvel's most ambitious yet divisive film. Directed by Oscar winner Chloe Zhao, it offered a slower, more philosophical look at cosmic immortals, but struggled with pacing and audience connection. Hawkeye grounded the universe with a festive, street-level story, introducing Kate Bishop and giving Clint Barton a heartfelt arc. Spider-Man: No Way Home was the undisputed highlight of the phase, a multiversal spectacle that united 3 generations of Spider-Man in an emotionally charged, nostalgia-fueled epic. It was both fan service and powerful storytelling at its best. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness leaned into horror with Sam Raimi's signature style, but its chaotic pacing and character decisions, especially with Wanda, left fans split. Moon Knight brought in supernatural and psychological elements with Oscar Isaac's stellar performance, but it felt disconnected from the broader MCU. Miss Marvel delivered vibrant teen energy and cultural representation, even if its villain arc was underdeveloped. Thor: Love and Thunder tried to blend comedy with tragedy, but leaned too far into humor, undermining the emotional weight of Jane Foster's return as Mighty Thor. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever closed the phase on a powerful note, honoring Chadwick Boseman's legacy with a moving tribute, intense political intrigue, and the introduction of Namor. In summary, Phase 4 was a mixed bag, rich in experimentation, representation, and character exploration, but often criticized for lacking focus and cohesion. The transition to Disney Plus content expanded the universe, but also overwhelmed some fans with its sheer volume. While the phase introduced new heroes, alternate realities, and spiritual mystical elements, it lacked a clear central narrative thread, making it feel like a collection of stories rather than a unified saga. Still, Phase 4 laid critical groundwork for the multiverse, expanded the roster for future team-ups, and opened doors for more diverse and genre-bending storytelling across the MCU. Marvel Phase 5, 2023 to 2025, aimed to stabilize and reinvigorate the MCU after the uneven reception of Phase 4, by focusing on tighter narratives, character development, and progressing the larger Multiverse Saga, particularly the looming threat of Kang the Conqueror. However, Phase 5 has so far proven to be a phase of growing pains, creative experimentation, and recalibration. It began with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a film intended to launch Kang as the next Thanos-level villain. While it expanded the quantum realm and introduced Jonathan Majors as a chilling variant of Kang, the film's uneven tone, underwhelming script, and CGI-heavy visuals received mixed to negative reactions. The villain's build-up suffered due to off-screen controversies and storytelling misfires, leaving Kang's threat feeling less immediate than intended. Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3 emerged as the emotional high point of the phase, offering a heartfelt and satisfying farewell to the beloved cosmic misfit team. James Gunn's direction balanced humor, trauma, and redemption beautifully, particularly through Rocket Raccoon's backstory, while giving each character a graceful send-off. It was praised for its emotional weight and character-driven narrative, proving that Marvel could still deliver deeply personal stories amid interstellar chaos. On the other hand, Secret Invasion, the Disney Plus series focused on espionage and the Skrull infiltration of Earth, was widely criticized for its uneven pacing, lackluster writing, and underutilization of major characters like Nick Fury and Talos. Despite its promising premise, it failed to live up to the paranoia-driven tone it promised. The Marvels attempted to merge the stories of Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan into a cosmic adventure, but the film underperformed at the box office and received a lukewarm critical response. While it had fun moments, strong chemistry between the leads, and dazzling visuals, it struggled with a rushed pace and underdeveloped villain. Loki Season 2 was a rare win on the Disney Plus front, praised for its philosophical exploration of fate, free will, and identity, anchored by strong performances and surreal time travel visuals. It also further cemented the multiverse chaos that's expected to culminate in Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars. Meanwhile, Echo brought a grittier, more grounded tone, following Maya Lopez and her journey of vengeance and identity. It was Marvel's first mature-rated series, with a darker tone and limited episodes, though its reach was limited due to poor marketing. Upcoming projects like Deadpool and Wolverine are expected to re-energize the fandom with nostalgic energy, R-rated action, and the return of Hugh Jackman, offering what many hope will be a standout blockbuster. However, delays in Thunderbolts, Blade, and Daredevil Born Again signal deeper issues within Marvel's development strategy, prompting leadership to shift toward a more quality over quantity approach moving forward. In essence, Phase 5 is a transitional phase, one that has moments of brilliance, fatigue, and course correction. While some projects like Guardians Vol. 3 and Loki Season 2 have reminded fans of Marvel's storytelling prowess, others have highlighted a need for narrative focus, improved visual effects, and a more compelling central threat. As Marvel heads toward Fantastic Four, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars, Phase 5 feels like both a testing ground and a response to previous missteps, reshaping the future of the MCU with cautious optimism and creative retooling. The future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, post-Phase 6 and beyond, stands at a critical turning point, both as a creative opportunity and a challenge. With Phase 6 expected to close the Multiverse Saga through colossal crossover events like Avengers Secret Wars, what comes next could mark either a renaissance or a redefinition of Marvel Studios. The post-Secret Wars world offers Marvel a clean slate, likely using the multiversal reset as a narrative tool to reorganize timelines, retire, or recast key characters, and streamline its increasingly complex universe. This opens the door for long-anticipated franchises to emerge with fresh energy, most notably the X-Men, who are expected to finally be fully integrated into the MCU. Rather than relying on legacy nostalgia, Marvel may focus on establishing a grounded, emotional core for these new heroes, exploring their social and political allegories in a modern setting, possibly beginning with standalone films like X-Men Origins, Storm, or Mutants. At the same time, Marvel will likely invest in next-generation Avengers, heroes like Spider-Man, Tom Holland's or a new variant, Shang-Chi, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, Kate Bishop, Ironheart, and possibly a rebooted Black Panther legacy. A young Avengers team, or a new core Avengers lineup, could emerge to lead grounded conflicts after the multiversal chaos subsides. Tonally, the post-multiverse era may return to more character-focused storytelling, diving into complex themes like identity, loss, politics, and rebuilding, rather than purely universe-ending stakes. Marvel's creative team is also expected to refine the balance between Disney Plus series and theatrical films, avoiding oversaturation by prioritizing quality and long-term narrative relevance. Additionally, more mature and darker properties, such as Midnight Suns, Ghost Rider, and Blade, could flourish in the post-multiverse world, offering genre diversity through supernatural and horror-infused storytelling. These properties may even operate as their own corner of the MCU, loosely connected but rich with tone and identity, much like the early cosmic branch built with Guardians of the Galaxy. On the cosmic side, characters like Nova, Silver Surfer, or Galactus could reshape Marvel's space-based storytelling, expanding beyond Earth-centric stories and forming the backbone of future saga-level threats. The future will also depend heavily on creative leadership. As Kevin Feige's vision matures and faces both praise and critique, Marvel may need fresh directing voices and stronger show-running consistency, leaning into singular artistic visions that made entries like Black Panther, Loki, and Guardians of the Galaxy resonate so deeply. Finally, Marvel will need to reckon with evolving audience expectations in a post-superhero fatigue era, possibly exploring more self-contained stories, genre mashups, and emotionally resonant arcs over endless cameos or multiversal twists. In essence, the MCU's post-Phase 6 direction could become the most pivotal chapter yet, not only ending a saga, but deciding how superhero cinema evolves in the years to come. If Marvel can balance innovation with emotional core storytelling and rediscover its early character-first magic, the next era might not just survive, it could thrive with a whole new generation of heroes leading the charge. The legacy and impact of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 2008 future is nothing short of revolutionary in the history of modern cinema. What began in 2008 as a gamble with Iron Man evolved into an interconnected narrative juggernaut that redefined blockbuster filmmaking, audience engagement, and franchise building for an entire generation. The MCU didn't just create a shared universe. It invented a new storytelling language, blending serialized television-style continuity with theatrical cinematic spectacle. Across over 30 films and numerous Disney Plus series, it has delivered iconic heroes, global cultural phenomena, and decade-spanning character arcs that rival even the most beloved sagas in film history. At its peak, with films like Avengers Endgame, Marvel united global audiences in unprecedented fashion, creating emotional, communal cinematic moments that felt earned through years of storytelling investment. Beyond the box office records and massive fan base, the MCU's legacy lies in its ability to evolve. It brought underrepresented characters and cultures to the forefront, from Black Panther's Afrofuturism to Shang-Chi's martial arts mysticism and Ms. Marvel's cultural identity. It tackled complex themes: grief, legacy, trauma, responsibility, while still delivering humor, action, and visual spectacle. The franchise made stars out of lesser-known comic characters and allowed actors like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and Chadwick Boseman to leave iconic cinematic legacies. It also redefined the role of post-credit scenes, crossover potential, and long-form payoff in film storytelling. However, the MCU's impact isn't without challenges. Its success inspired a wave of shared universes across studios, many of which failed to replicate its balance of planning, patience, and character-first focus. Internally, the MCU has also faced its own struggles. Oversaturation in Phases 4 and 5, creative inconsistencies, VFX fatigue, and increasing difficulty maintaining emotional stakes in a multiverse where death can be undone. The constant expansion of content created debate over quality control and whether the franchise could continue to innovate or risk becoming formulaic. Yet despite these hurdles, the MCU remains a cultural powerhouse with the ability to reinvent itself. Its influence can be felt across genres, industries, and platforms, from how studios greenlight franchises to how fans engage with stories through theories, trailers, and cross-medium experiences. Marvel Studios' commitment to diversity, genre experimentation, and large-scale storytelling continues to shape the future of entertainment, inspiring a new generation of creators and audiences. Ultimately, the legacy of the MCU isn't just about superheroes. It's about world building at a scale never before seen, about trusting audiences with long-form emotional arcs, and about proving that cinema, when done with vision and character-driven heart, can still unite the world in moments of awe, inspiration, and unforgettable storytelling. Whether it eventually evolves, concludes, or passes the torch to new sagas, the Marvel Cinematic Universe will forever stand as one of the most ambitious, impactful, and game-changing franchises in film history. ChatGPT said, "The cultural phenomenon of the Marvel Cinematic Universe extends far beyond its record-breaking box office or its meticulously interconnected stories. It has become a defining symbol of 21st century pop culture." Over more than a decade, the MCU has not only entertained audiences worldwide, but also reshaped how people engage with storytelling, fandom, and media itself. Marvel films are no longer just movie events. They are cultural landmarks. They spark global conversations, dominate online discourse, inspire endless fan theories, cosplay, fan art, and even academic analysis. The MCU has influenced everything from fashion and memes to politics and social movements, serving as a platform to spotlight ideas about identity, representation, and heroism. Characters like Iron Man, Black Panther, Captain America, and Scarlet Witch have become more than fictional heroes. They're cultural icons whose arcs resonate deeply with audiences of all ages and backgrounds. The franchise has also played a crucial role in pushing the entertainment industry toward more inclusive storytelling. It broke barriers with Black Panther and Ms. Marvel, centered female heroes in films like Captain Marvel and Black Widow, and explored mental health, grief, and morality in WandaVision and Moon Knight. This commitment to telling diverse stories has allowed the MCU to evolve alongside its audience and maintain relevance across generations. In doing so, Marvel Studios helped redefine what mainstream blockbusters could be. Not just spectacles, but also personal, socially conscious, and emotionally layered experiences. Moreover, the MCU helped usher in a new era of event fandom, where going to the movies became an experience tied to collective emotion, anticipation, and cultural participation. Midnight premieres, trailer breakdowns, end credits speculation, and the shared excitement of seeing iconic characters appear on screen are all part of this cultural ecosystem. The MCU has given people from all walks of life a shared language, a way to connect, debate, and celebrate together. It's one of the few modern franchises that has managed to unify mainstream audiences and niche fan communities under a single, ever-expanding banner. As Marvel moves into uncharted territory with new heroes, deeper themes, and broader creative risks, the cultural weight it carries will continue to shape entertainment. Its success has inspired new generations of storytellers, artists, and fans who now believe that anything is possible, that the impossible can become canon, and that the stories they grew up loving can grow with them. Whether or not the MCU ever matches the heights of Endgame again, its cultural impact is already immortal. It didn't just build a universe, it built a legacy that redefined global fandom, forever changed Hollywood, and reminded audiences that at the heart of every great spectacle is a human story worth believing in. As Marvel Studios steps beyond the Infinity Saga and Multiverse Saga into its future phases, it faces both enormous potential and mounting pressure. The post-Endgame era has been marked by experimentation, embracing diverse tones, fresh genres, and a broader mix of characters. But it's also been met with criticism over franchise fatigue, inconsistent quality, and overwhelming content output across film and Disney Plus series. Audiences now demand not just more, but better. Tighter storytelling, meaningful character development, and emotional stakes that match or exceed the best of the MCU's legacy. Looking ahead, Marvel's next major events, like Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars, promise multiversal madness on an even grander scale than before. But success hinges on earning audience investment in the new generation of heroes like Shang-Chi, Ms. Marvel, Moon Knight, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. These stories must not only dazzle visually, but also resonate emotionally, recapturing the heart that made Iron Man, Black Panther, or Spider-Man No Way Home so impactful. Additionally, Marvel has the opportunity to redefine the superhero genre once more by embracing bold, auteur-driven filmmaking, meaningful representation, and character-first narratives. Audiences have grown, and the MCU must grow with them. With the multiverse as a tool and legacy characters still beloved, the future is a balancing act of nostalgia and innovation. If done right, the MCU can become more than a cinematic universe. It can evolve into a storytelling epic that spans decades, cultures, and generations. Again, beyond the structure of individual phases, the Marvel Cinematic Universe represents a monumental shift in how stories are told in mainstream cinema. What Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios accomplished isn't merely a successful franchise, it's the creation of a cultural juggernaut that reshaped the very DNA of Hollywood filmmaking. Before the MCU, connected universes were rare, long-term cinematic planning was riskier, and superhero films often remained isolated stories. Marvel broke that mold. With Iron Man in 2008, they planted the seed for something that would blossom into an interconnected saga that rivaled mythologies and serialized TV storytelling, but on a global blockbuster scale. Marvel's legacy also lies in its ability to blend genre with superhero structure, turning political thrillers, The Winter Soldier, space operas, Guardians of the Galaxy, heist comedies, Ant-Man, fantasy epics, Thor Ragnarok, and coming-of-age dramas, Spider-Man Homecoming, into compelling Marvel entries. It created a model that studios have tried and often failed to replicate. In importantly, Marvel gave space for characters to grow across multiple films, turning once lesser-known heroes like Iron Man and Black Widow into household names. But legacy also brings responsibility. As the MCU moves forward, it carries the weight of expectation. It must avoid stagnation, embrace bold storytelling, and give audiences not just spectacle, but substance. The MCU's past proves it can do this. Its future will define whether it can continue to lead, inspire, and evolve with the changing world, or become a relic of a cinematic era it once revolutionized. What makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe resonate so profoundly with global audiences isn't just its grand scale, action set pieces, or interconnected plots. It's the emotional humanity woven into its characters. Beneath the suits, the gods, the multiverse jumps, and the world-ending stakes lies a core made of vulnerability, loss, redemption, and hope. Whether it's Tony Stark grappling with guilt and legacy, Steve Rogers learning to move forward in a time not his own, Wanda Maximoff mourning love and identity, or Peter Parker facing the crushing weight of responsibility, the MCU thrives because it allows its heroes to fail, to break, and ultimately to rise again. Marvel has always understood that character growth is just as essential as cosmic battles. Each phase of the MCU carefully constructed emotional threads that tied characters to audiences. Fans didn't cry at Tony's funeral in Endgame because of the explosions. They wept because they'd grown with him for over a decade. Viewers rooted for Bucky Barnes, not just because he was powerful, but because he was broken and trying to heal. Even villains like Killmonger and Thanos weren't just evil. They were complex, motivated by ideology, grief, and vision. This layered emotional storytelling elevated Marvel beyond comic book cinema and into the realm of modern myth. The cultural impact is undeniable. Marvel films became more than just movies. They were moments, events, shared experiences. Opening night crowds felt like communal celebrations. The MCU gave audiences symbols of strength, humor, unity, and resilience. For a generation, these characters didn't just live on screen, they became personal. In times of global uncertainty, Marvel offered not just escapism, but reminders of courage, family, sacrifice, and belief in something greater. That emotional legacy is why the MCU continues to matter. The Marvel Cinematic Universe began with a simple story. A flawed billionaire builds a suit in a cave and chooses to become something better. Iron Man in 2008 grounded the MCU in a world where consequences, choices, and responsibility carried emotional weight. But over the years, Marvel's storytelling has evolved in scale, ambition, and narrative complexity, morphing from intimate character arcs into a sprawling tapestry of interconnected dimensions, timelines, and legacies. What began as a grounded tale of redemption has become a mythos rivaling any epic saga in modern cinema history. Phase 1 told origin stories. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, establishing humanity behind heroism. It was about personal battles and trust, laying the groundwork for a shared universe. Phase 2 challenged that trust, with darker themes of betrayal, Winter Soldier, trauma, Iron Man 3, and identity, Guardians of the Galaxy. Phase 3, Marvel's storytelling masterpiece, tackled ideology, consequence, and loss. From Civil War to Infinity War, every film added layers of maturity, ultimately culminating in the emotionally devastating Endgame, which marked the end of an era and the birth of a new, uncertain future. Then came Phase 4 and beyond, a narrative shift that embraced experimentation. With the Infinity Saga over, Marvel opened its doors to multiverses, alternate timelines, and metaphysical ideas. Shows like WandaVision bent reality and grief into art. Loki questioned the nature of free will. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness played with horror, chaos, and consequence. This evolution wasn't just visual, it was philosophical. Marvel began asking deeper questions. What defines a variant? Can a hero be broken? Is power inherently corruptible? This shift to multiversal and cosmic storytelling expanded the sandbox, but also introduced complexity. For some, too much. But it's a necessary evolution. Like comic books, the MCU constantly reinvents itself. It dares to be bold, allowing smaller, intimate stories like Ms. Marvel or Moon Knight to coexist with reality-breaking events. That's the heart of Marvel's brilliance. It can zoom in on a teenager in Jersey City and zoom out to show a cosmic entity judging Earth's fate. Marvel's storytelling evolution mirrors its audience's growth. From hopeful dreamers to thinkers, seekers, and believers navigating a complex world. And through every phase, every twist, and every new direction, Marvel continues to remind us. No matter how vast the universe gets, the best stories are always about the human heart. When Avengers Endgame closed its final chapter on the original team, it didn't just conclude a decade-long cinematic saga, it marked the end of a generation's emotional journey. Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, Thor, and Clint Barton weren't just characters on a screen, they were ideals. They were mirrors of our strengths, our flaws, our dreams. They were family. Iron Man, the genius with a broken heart, was never supposed to be the hero. Arrogant, flawed, and haunted by his past, Tony Stark evolved from an arms dealer to the man who sacrificed everything to protect a world that once doubted him. His final line, "I am Iron Man," wasn't just a callback. It was closure. It was the moment a man known for ego chose ultimate selflessness. For many, Tony was the beating heart of the MCU, and his loss was personal. Captain America stood for something larger, a man out of time, holding on to old values in a modern world that had lost its way. Steve Rogers was strength in stillness, courage in humility. His decision to pass on the shield wasn't just a plot point. It was symbolic of legacy, of moving forward, and of trusting the future. Steve's journey was about finding peace, not in war, but in love, something he'd been denied for so long. Black Widow, the silent warrior with red in her ledger, fought not for glory, but for redemption. Natasha Romanoff's sacrifice on Vormir was devastating, because it was quiet, painful, and complete. She wasn't a god or a soldier. She was a spy who chose to save the universe without needing applause. For millions of fans, especially women, Natasha was representation. Tough, intelligent, vulnerable, and unafraid. Thor, once a brash prince, became a broken god. His evolution, from golden-haired warrior to a grieving man hiding behind laughter, was one of the most human arcs in the MCU. Thor showed that even gods can fall apart, and even the strongest among us must seek healing. His journey wasn't about reclaiming a throne, but rediscovering his worth beyond it. The Hulk, who once raged uncontrollably, found peace through acceptance. Bruce Banner's evolution into Smart Hulk wasn't about being stronger, it was about being whole. His arc taught that embracing our darker sides can lead to harmony, not destruction. Hawkeye, often the overlooked Avenger, was the most grounded. A man with a family, a bow, and a fierce loyalty to his friends. His loss of time, of Natasha, of innocence, shaped him into a tragic warrior. But it was his humanity that kept the team tethered to reality. Together, they weren't just a team, they were a symbol of unity, sacrifice, resilience, of what could happen when individuals let go of ego and fight for something greater. Now, as the MCU forges ahead into the multiverse, new generations rise. Sam Wilson as Captain America, Kate Bishop, Shang-Chi, Kamala Khan, the young Avengers on the horizon. But the legacy of the original six remains sacred. They built the house. They earned every cheer, every tear, and every beat of silence in that theater. When Tony died, when Steve danced, when Natasha didn't return. They weren't just Avengers. They were ours. Before 2008, the idea of multiple solo film franchises culminating into a unified, continuous narrative across films was nearly unthinkable. But with Iron Man as the spark, Marvel Studios began constructing something entirely new. A cinematic universe where stories, characters, and consequences intertwined across movies, phases, and years. What began as a post-credits teaser of Nick Fury mentioning the Avengers initiative became the defining structure of modern blockbuster storytelling. Marvel didn't just release films, it released chapters of a massive living narrative. Each phase was designed with intention. Phase 1 introduced foundational heroes and subtly hinted at a larger threat. Phase 2 built personal and ideological fractures. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, while Phase 3 delivered climactic payoff with Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. Beyond the epic battles and time travel heists, the real genius lay in the trust Marvel placed in its audience. Viewers were encouraged to keep up, theorize, and emotionally invest in a storyline that could span over a decade. No film existed in isolation. Actions in one affected outcomes in another. This was no longer just cinema. It was serialized storytelling at a scale Hollywood hadn't attempted before. Marvel's success redefined studio strategy. Competitors scrambled to create universes of their own, from DC's attempts to dark universe concepts. But what most lacked was Marvel's patience, character-first focus, and tight creative oversight. Kevin Feige's long-term vision, combined with the studio's ability to seamlessly blend genres, spy thriller, Winter Soldier, space opera, Guardians of the Galaxy, heist, Ant-Man, fantasy, Doctor Strange, allowed the MCU to stay fresh while expanding its lore. The result? A global fandom that doesn't just watch Marvel films, they follow them. The MCU set a precedent where a single post-credit scene can shake the internet, where casting rumors trend worldwide, and where continuity matters more than ever. It wasn't just about superheroes. It was about building a cinematic legacy, one connection at a time. With the closing chapter of Avengers Endgame, Marvel Studios found itself at a critical turning point. The original core, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, had fulfilled their arcs in emotional, heroic finales. What followed wasn't just a shift in characters, but a thematic evolution, the idea of legacy. Marvel began to ask deeper questions. Who steps up when legends fall? How do heroes inherit mantles without losing themselves? This transition was most apparent in shows like The Falcon and The Winter Soldier. Sam Wilson's journey wasn't just about picking up Captain America's shield. It was about confronting what that symbol meant in a complicated modern world. His hesitancy, the public's reaction, and Isaiah Bradley's tragic backstory turned the idea of becoming Captain America into a nuanced, culturally resonant exploration of heroism in the 21st century. Similarly, in Hawkeye, Clint Barton's reluctant mentorship of Kate Bishop wasn't just fan service. It was a personal arc about letting go, healing, and finding worth outside of violence. Kate didn't just mirror Clint, she redefined what being Hawkeye could mean. In Black Widow, Yelena Belova emerges not just as Natasha's sister, but as a chaotic, emotional successor who carries the same trauma with a very different voice. These aren't replacements, they're redefinitions. Even younger characters are stepping into frames once held by giants. Ms. Marvel introduces Kamala Khan, a teenager grappling with fan obsession, identity, and new powers, a parallel to how many MCU fans feel watching a universe shift before their eyes. Ironheart is poised to continue Tony Stark's genius legacy, not as a clone, but as a voice for a new generation with new problems. In She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters brings a legal and comedic lens to the Hulk legacy. Playful, self-aware, and entirely her own. This thematic baton passing isn't just about new faces, it's about acknowledging the weight of legacy while making space for fresh ideas. Marvel no longer defines a hero by their power, but by their ability to adapt, evolve, and endure emotionally. It's a risk. Nostalgia for the original Avengers still runs deep, but it's necessary. The MCU isn't a fixed story anymore. It's an intergenerational saga, one where stories live on, not because they're repeated, but because they're reimagined. As Kang and the multiverse threaten to unravel timelines, Marvel's true battle lies within. How to honor the past while forging something bold and new. With legacy at its heart, the MCU's future looks less like a straight line and more like a branching tree, rooted in history, reaching for something greater. For years, Marvel Studios was praised for its heroes, but criticized for its villains. In the early phases of the MCU, antagonists often served as one-dimensional threats, mere obstacles for our protagonists to overcome. From Ironmonger to Malekith, many lacked depth or lasting impact. But as the MCU matured, so too did its approach to villain. Marvel began to ask a more meaningful question. What makes a villain, and can they be understood? The shift started subtly. In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes wasn't a true villain, but a broken product of war and manipulation. This was the beginning of a trend. Villains with trauma, pain, or ideology that mirrored the hero's own internal conflict. Bucky wasn't just Steve Rogers' enemy. He was his brother, corrupted. That emotional connection created tension more powerful than any world-ending beam in the sky. Then came Black Panther's Eric Killmonger, arguably Marvel's first truly revolutionary antagonist. Killmonger's rage was justified, even if his methods were not. His ideology about oppression, justice, and systemic neglect wasn't evil, it was real. The tragedy of Killmonger was that he could have been a hero under different circumstances. His final line, "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors," became iconic not just for its poetry, but for its truth. In Avengers: Infinity War, Marvel took its biggest risk, making the villain the protagonist. Thanos, brought to life with nuance by Josh Brolin, wasn't a cartoonish overlord. He was calm, intelligent, and believed he was saving the universe. The fact that audiences could empathize with a genocidal god speaks volumes about Marvel's evolving complexity. By the time he sacrifices his own daughter for his mission, the lines between right and wrong are horrifyingly blurred. The post-Endgame era has continued this trend. WandaVision's Agatha Harkness wasn't just a mischievous sorceress. She was a survivor chasing power in a world that had taken everything from her. But the real villain of the show was grief itself, embodied in Wanda's actions. We watched a hero spiral into darkness, not through hate, but through heartbreak. Loki, once Marvel's classic trickster antagonist, has become a multi-dimensional protagonist in his own right. Broken, burdened, and searching for identity. Even villains like Namor in Wakanda Forever aren't evil. They're kings, protecting their people at any cost. The same applies to Carly Morgenthau in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whose radicalism stemmed from real-world displacement and injustice. This evolution reflects a broader truth. Marvel has realized that a villain's strength lies not in their destruction, but in their humanity. The best villains are mirrors, reflecting the hero's fears, failures, and doubts. They are born not from pure evil, but from pain, ideology, desperation, or loss. In embracing this emotional complexity, Marvel is telling richer stories. It's no longer just good versus evil. It's trauma versus hope, loss versus justice, order versus freedom. And as the multiverse expands and timelines fracture, the question becomes more urgent. What makes a person fall, and can they ever be redeemed? What truly separates the Marvel Cinematic Universe from other sprawling franchises isn't just its visual spectacle or interconnected narrative. It's the emotional resonance it consistently weaves through its stories. Beneath the armor, powers, and multiversal mayhem lies a beating heart that connects audiences not just to the action, but to the people inside the suits. Tony Stark's journey from arrogant weapons dealer to selfless savior wasn't merely a character arc. It was a symbol of human growth and redemption. Steve Rogers' unwavering morality and eventual decision to choose personal peace was a poignant commentary on sacrifice and self-worth. Even newer heroes like Shang-Chi and Kamala Khan carry deep emotional conflicts, legacies of family, identity, and culture that reflect the world outside the screen. The MCU succeeds when it leans into vulnerability. Wanda Maximoff's grief, Peter Parker's loss, Thor's quiet moments of failure. These are the quiet, tender threads that make the spectacle worthwhile. It's why Endgame's I Love You 3000 or No Way Home's rooftop scene hit as hard as any battle. These aren't just superhero films. They are layered emotional narratives dressed in myth and magic. As the franchise expands across galaxies and timelines, its challenge remains to keep the emotional stakes personal, grounded, and sincere. Audiences may come for the epic clashes, but they stay for the tears, the triumphs, and the tiny human moments that remind us that even gods, aliens, and billionaires can feel heartbreak and rise from it. What began as a bold cinematic experiment with Iron Man in 2008 has now transcended the boundaries of film and become a defining cultural force of the 21st century. The Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't just revolutionize how movies are made, it redefined what audiences expect from storytelling on a global scale. No longer were superhero films considered disposable popcorn fare. They became complex, serialized, emotional journeys shared by millions around the world. From children wearing Spider-Man costumes to college students debating the ethics of civil war, from social media eruptions after each trailer drop to packed midnight screenings for Avengers Endgame. The MCU isn't just entertainment, it's a living, breathing part of pop culture history. Its legacy is visible not just in its box office records or Oscar nominations, but in its impact on fandom, diversity, and creative ambition. It opened doors for characters like Black Panther and Shang-Chi to stand center stage, showing that superheroism is universal and representation matters. It pushed studios to take bold narrative risks, to plan meticulously across years and characters, and to trust audiences with layered storytelling. The MCU bridged generations, uniting parents and children, hardcore fans and casual viewers, through shared moments of awe, laughter, and heartbreak. And while debates rage over its future direction, one thing remains clear. Marvel has already etched its mark on cinematic history, becoming more than a franchise. It became a global movement, a shared language of heroes, sacrifice, and hope. Beneath the spectacle, the CGI battles, and the multi-billion-dollar scale, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has always thrived because of one simple, timeless truth: its heart. From the very beginning, the MCU has grounded its world-saving warriors with real human emotion, making gods feel vulnerable and billionaires feel broken. Tony Stark wasn't just a genius in a suit. He was a man seeking redemption. Steve Rogers wasn't just a soldier. He was a man out of time, navigating a world that had moved on without him. These characters, though surrounded by aliens, monsters, and cosmic threats, constantly wrestled with fear, loss, friendship, identity, and purpose. And that emotional honesty, not just the heroism, is what pulled millions closer. We watched Peter Parker struggle with responsibility and loss across multiverses, saw Thor lose everything but still find the strength to fight for others, and journeyed with Wanda Maximoff from grief to chaos to painful self-realization. Every character arc has been a reflection of humanity, messy, complicated, and beautiful. The MCU doesn't just chronicle battles between good and evil. It explores how trauma shapes people, how love endures across galaxies, how leadership breaks and rebuilds, and how sacrifice defines legacy. When audiences cried as Tony snapped his fingers, or as Steve danced with Peggy, or when T'Challa crossed into the ancestral plane, they weren't mourning heroes, they were connecting with souls. That's the true power of Marvel. It makes myths feel mortal, and in doing so, it makes us all believe that even ordinary people can be extraordinary. In the ever-expanding universe of Marvel, where timelines bend and multiverses collide, one theme has always stood firm: sacrifice. It's the heartbeat behind the shield, the pulse beneath the arc reactor, and the whisper in the Wakandan winds. It is not the suits, the powers, or the technology that make these characters legendary. It is what they are willing to lose. Again and again, Marvel's greatest heroes have stood on the edge of personal destruction, not for glory, but for love, for hope, and for something bigger than themselves. When Natasha Romanoff stepped off that cliff on Vormir, it wasn't just to retrieve a stone. It was to ensure that her makeshift family, the Avengers, had a future. When Tony Stark snapped his fingers, he didn't just defeat Thanos. He ended his story so others could begin theirs. Even lesser-seen sacrifices echo through the saga. Yondu giving his life for Peter Quill, Wanda letting go of Vision and her children in Multiverse of Madness, Steve Rogers choosing a quiet life over eternal war. These moments define the MCU far more than any final battle or villain's monologue. These stories resonate because they reflect something deeply human. To love is to risk loss. To lead is to carry burdens. Marvel's heroes show us that heroism isn't about being invincible. It's about giving, hurting, breaking, and still choosing to protect others. Sacrifice, in its purest form, is the essence of legacy. It's what turns a man in a cave building a suit into a legend. It's what lifts a boy from Brooklyn into the symbol of a nation. It's what makes gods weep and warriors bleed. In a world that constantly asks what you're willing to fight for, Marvel dares to ask, what are you willing to give up? And in that question lies the soul of its universe. In the end, it wasn't the powers, the battles, or the suits that made them heroes. It was their heart, their sacrifice, their willingness to rise again, no matter the cost. Tony gave everything for a future he'd never seen. Natasha chose silence so others could speak. Steve passed the shield, not just to a man, but to hope itself. The Marvel legacy isn't in the stars. It's in us. In every act of courage, every whisper of Avengers assemble, every tear for heroes who felt real. The battles may end, but the stories never will. Heroes live on, not in the spotlight, but in the hearts they've touched.